want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Hello and welcome. So, this is Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia. And as we can see, it's a winner for the Mensa Select board game, whatever. And I'm just going to get this out of the way right now, so if you don't like what I say, move on. But if you're interested, please stay and watch the rest of the video. Stonemaier games. You either like them or you hate them. And I find it really odd how Stonemaier works, because Stonemaier builds lore very well. But his games are in general really boring. And I bring that up because Euphoria, it's built on an idea of a dystopian future like 1984, Fahrenheit 451, most recently I could think of as the Hunger Games or Battle Royale, something like those. But it's odd because you don't actually do any of that stuff that's associated with the lore. A good example of this is this book right here, the manual. Stonemaier starts off with, "You were young when you discovered the truth about the world. You had always considered society utopia. The word dystopia wasn't even your vocabulary or your dictionary. When you learned the truth, you had a choice, run away or stay to make your mark on the world. You choose to stay. That was years ago. Now you wonder if you made the right choice. But you've come too far to look back now. You're on the brink of doing something big, of wresting control away from your oppressors. You've acquired 2 workers and you have access to more. Thanks to the strength of your allegiance of various factions, you've recruited experts to help you with your master plan. You're poised to take the next step. Are you willing to make a sacrifice in the present to make the future better than the past?" But that's not what you do in this game. That's nothing like you do in this game, and that's what makes it really weird. The idea of this type of game is you're doing like a Logan's Run thing and you're going to fight against the system and change it. But that's not how any of this mechanically works, and that's why I find it very bizarre. I bring it up because Scythe is a perfect example of that type of lore system. As you can see, I own all of Scythe. I got the Kickstarter, Collector's Edition, all that, yada yada yada. This is one of my first big games I really got into. This is the first one to show me that board games can have really good components and all the other stuff that makes you go, oh wow, shiny. But the problem with Scythe is, it's very rigid, mechanical, and there's only a certain way to play if you actually want to win the game. And this is where Stonemaier games get weird. Do you play to have fun, or you play to win? And Scythe has quickly dropped to the bottom of my favorite games. I don't even know why I keep it. But I bought Dystopia because it was recommended to me, and people said I would like the theme of fighting the oppressors. And some said that you could be the oppressor. And I was like, well, that tickles my tism. So I was really curious, because again, I've played a lot of Stonemaier games, and I played a lot of Mensa Select games, and in general, I'm not a fan of Stonemaier games. And the Mensa Select thing is even weirder, because if it says Mensa Select on it, it's usually not a good game in my opinion. Surprisingly, there's a lot of other Mensa winners that I own and played and enjoy that never ever put this sticker on. So I find it really bizarre that they put this sticker on there, and it makes me question, is Mensa really a bunch of smart people? Are they people that believe in the imagination of the con? Because this game doesn't work the way that this tagline is trying to build it. This is a game from 2013, by the way. It's a really old game, and the only reason I'm bringing it up right now is because it was a reprint that's been in demand forever. We see we have a board. We have Artifact, Recruit, Ethical Dilemma cards. These are really terrible, by the way. And just this layout. And I'm really confused by the fanfare and support because people say they love this game. I've played this game about 6 times now, with between 2 and 5 players. And honestly, it doesn't feel any different. I bring it up mainly because mechanically how it plays. The original Kickstarter version of this game did not come with the game trays, so this is all the stuff that was supposed to be exclusive to the Kickstarter, like these custom dice and yada yada yada. And I was like, okay, well, at least the organizing system's really neat. And then, of course, I started taking the stuff out. And you're realizing that there's a lot of empty stuff in this box, which seems a little suspect. And that's because this was made with the expansion in mind. And the weird part about that expansion in mind that expansion is also out of print from what I understand, but you can get a used copy. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Because the board is double-sided. But double-sided in a weird way. I've never seen a game actually do this. This side up here, we have this little disclaimer. This is used for the Ignorance is Bliss expansion, this board state. And this board state has the variations, and I heard there was stickers to fix it in the expansion to add these to the tracks for your player count. And I was like, makes sense, because this game actually takes a lot longer than I thought. And it doesn't need to take that long. It's really weird it takes a long time to play. Because people say this has a very strict decision tree, and it's very hard to min-max. And I'm not so sure about that. On the regular side of the board, we don't have those numbers for player count, so you have to start all the way up here when you're digging this tunnel. And this whole idea of this world is built on, we have like the rich people that live in the skies, like Rapture and Bioshock, and apparently do drugs all day. We have this dystopian 1980, no, this isn't even 1984, this is more like kind of the Hunger Games, but not. This is the Hunger Games right here, with the whole District 12 being the farmland of poor people, and this is like the miners. But this is like the capital city, because it's all gold. The problem is that you have basically people working in these hamster wheels here making power. And I was like, okay, that seems kind of neat. So it got to me, like, what am I actually doing in this whole picture that is, I am trying to change the system? Because there's two really weird systems in this game. And I actually like them, but they are counterintuitive to what your goals are if you're playing a character that's trying to rebel against the system. You have your agents and your workers, and your goal is to keep them stupid. That's not good for a society for a better future. It's good if you want to be a dictator, but people can only take so much before they murder you. And then we have the happiness. The happiness is really important, but it's not as important as it looks. You need it about 3 if you really want to do stuff. But the 6 is the part that gets you, like, it's more cards. This is your hand size, your happiness. And this intelligence system, you're going to have to roll your dice every time you pick them up off the board. And when you roll them, you're going to compare where you are on this track, add that number to the value. So if you rolled like 12 and you get a 6, but you're going to have to lose the worker, the highest worker you rolled. I was like, okay, so the idea is that intelligent people ran away from this dystopian society. So you got to balance ignorance and intelligence. But if you want to actually change the system, the more people that leave instead of supporting nonsensical systems like this, the better. If you're trying to keep people there, you're actually contributing harm. So from that view, I'm really thrown off by what Stonemaier was trying to do. As far as resources go, resources in this game are bizarre because there is really no limit to resources. You can get them pretty much everywhere. Anyone can get it. There's no blocking. Some of the resources, like the Sky Drugs, it's really odd. In most Euro games, you're trying to block your opponents or you're trying to force them to do stuff because there's not that much player interaction. This game, it doesn't matter. There's really no interaction. And that's why I'm really surprised because, again, you only have 2 actions. You only have 2 actions. Place a die on a workspace, get whatever it does, or pay for it to do something, or pick up your dice, and when you pick up your dice, you gotta re-roll them. And then you do this stat check. That's the whole game. I don't know why it takes so long, and I think it's just because we're all waiting. Because a lot of people want to figure out how to do stuff, but there's not a lot of stuff to do. I was reading on Board Game Geek that a lot of people say this has analysis paralysis because it's really complicated, and I don't see it. And one of my friends, being a game designer, also told me, he's like, it's a Stonemaier thing. And I was like, yeah, I know, you hate Stonemaier, but give it a chance. This is his early work, and I want to check it out. And honestly, I don't see the appeal of this game. And that might be because I play better games. But it's really odd that there's so much fanfare and love for this game, and I think the story and nostalgia idea is really strong. And this gets me back to Mensa again. There's a weird, smug form of superiority and elitism when you say, I've read 1984, and I've read Fahrenheit 451, or I read some great classical work. And I've read those books. I've also read the terrible books like The Hunger Games. And I don't feel snobbish about it. It doesn't make me a better person to say that I'm knowledgeable on things or I understand things. It doesn't give me that smug superiority complex that a society or group would have. Like, most secret societies are people trying to have fun and maybe try to take over the world. I don't get what's fun about this. And I feel like that there was some really skewed marketing. But Euphoria doesn't work. Scythe is also a big story game that doesn't really make sense. And with Vantage, which I'll be doing in the future, I've played it. Stonemaier, surprisingly, might actually want to be a writer more than a game designer. That's where I think his passion is. The idea of having agents that you are recruiting but not really recruiting is odd. So, this deck. These are your supposed agents, and I was like, neat. They represent the 4 factions. Again, the people in the sky huffing drugs all day, people working the farms, people running in hamster wheels, and the people who are mole people, apparently. These cards vary from really good to absolute garbage. And I say that because the power structure on this game is very wonky. But you're going to get 4. You're going to pick 2 out of the 4. And I think it's best to be multiple factions, but sometimes you'll just get a hand of the same guys because that's just how luck works. And then out of the 2 that you pick, one of them's going to be face down and one's going to be face up. This represents your agent that is loyal to you and one that you're working on converting. The one that's face up is going to give you a bonus, like this mole person here that works in the waterworks. If you go to these locations and you've met the requirements on this track, it's going to trigger some really good stuff for you. That's great. And this track down here, so if I had placed my worker, I don't know, in this aquifer here, this gear symbol is going to raise up this track by 1. Because I have an agent in the aquifer, if it reaches this spot, I will now gain an extra water. And if it gets here, I'll get to do both these spots' abilities. And if it gets here, when it reaches here, anyone with a face-down agent will reveal. And I'm like, that's kind of odd. I think the idea is to get other people to help you, so you're playing some type of mind game, but it doesn't really matter. There's multiple ways to get your stars, and the victory condition is literally throughout your 10 stars, which are conveniently recycled from like Scythe and every other Stonemaier game. He just, I don't know if it's a cost-saving thing, if it's just his thing. And I was like, okay, so people are going to help you work this track and try to do stuff, and that's what everyone wants to do. The other thing that's really weird is if you have the agent that matches this tunnel, you can put your agent on that colored square. But if no one else has that agent, they don't get that bonus. And I was like, okay. These arrows here, which are like gray, it's kind of hard to see, just means that you can put a die here to kick off whoever's there, and when it's kicked off, it gets rerolled. I was like, so there's no blocking. Great. The only real blocking is placing it on these building sites, and it's going to tell you on this little handy-dandy chart, which this is nice, but it's typical Stonemaier design. You don't have to pick up the dice when they're here. Yeah, actually, you don't have to pick up dice in general. But when it's on this chart, it is now blocking. But it only blocks one of the resources. So the other resource might be easier to get, or harder, depending on what factions you are. So there's not any real blocking. These locations, you're going to place dice here, and they're going to add up a total, and you're going to get these great bonuses and probably side effects, because now your workers are too smart because they were all talking to each other and unionizing, so they gain some brain, which is bad for you. When you pick up your dice too, you got to feed them by giving them food or giving them some drugs, and your happiness will go up by 2. I guess that makes sense, except if you don't have any food or any drugs, you can never go below 1. So Some people have just said, screw it, I'm never getting this resource. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if my people are happy because I'm not going to do the artifact thing. And the artifact thing is another nightmarish thing in this game. If you get 2 pairs of the same artifacts, you can pitch them for a 3 artifact symbol. Or, and this is one of the most infuriating things I think about this game, these reference cards are actually your dubious, like how you're going to fight the system or encourage the system. So you can publish an expose. Pretty sure it's supposed to be expose. You get to draw 2 recruits and you get to keep 1. Or you could publish propaganda and you just place your star on this card. The effects on how to trigger this is you discard an artifact that's either glasses or just 2 artifact cards. And this is a one-time effect, but it's like, why do I want more agents? It's not really going to be that helpful. It's a luck thing if they're useful. I'd rather just take the guaranteed point. And a lot of these have like some really dark humor, but the thing that I hate about them is they're all the same. Everyone gets the same card basically. The only difference is what artifact you're pitching to put a point on. And I was like, that kind of sucks. But when you get if you want to get 2 extra agents, you draw them and it's like, oh, okay, they're different, cool. And if they're not flipped up, they don't do anything unless this is working in your favor. And the thing is that there's multiple ways for this track to trigger, like going down this path. So it's kind of weird if you're going down the subterranean tunnel, why is it still linked to this? They're the 2 ways to flip it. It makes no sense to me, but whatever. These buildings vary from like annoying to just game design broken. If you contributed a building, you get to put your star on this building. If you didn't put your star on this building, you get a penalty. This tile specifically I chose because this tile is bad. This is extremely shitty, poor game design. The reason that these icons are up here is you slide it over to cover up the market now for building. And if someone puts their cube here, they gotta pay 4 gas, 1 metal, rock, whatever. And then they can put their star here, which negates this effect. Cool. But this tile has a specific flaw. If you don't have a star here, you may not place workers on Icarus. Icarus being the land of sky drug addicts. This green resource can only be gained from Icarus. That really is rough. But, you know, like I said, don't throw it because you could get this to flip over and maybe that'll work out in your favor to do that. That's a very odd and terrible design in my opinion, but, you know, whatever. I haven't made a game. I also haven't conned anyone. So this game is very wonky. And why I say, like, it doesn't matter, and the weird thing is the manual even says, like, there's no real first player priority. It says, who cares? Like, Stonemayer's like, who cares? Just play the damn game. The only thing that I've seen that this game gives you an advantage on is if you roll numbered sets. If you roll number sets, what this allows you to do is place all the dice of the same number anywhere you want, and then you collect your resources. That's the action efficiency of the game. And this goes back to why the game is so damn slow, because you can only put 1 die a turn, and then you like pass. And then do this, rinse and repeat, until you either buy a 3rd worker, which the threat is, it's kind of a trap. They're kind of expensive to buy. It's going to affect that. But it's pretty easy to keep your ignorance around 1. But now, if you somehow got like 3 dice with all the same symbols, it's basically giving 3 actions. And with those 3 actions, you're able to score multiple points. The game is literally hoard resources and make a power play. And that's why it's so boring. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything in this game. And it goes back to why I think that thematically, this game sounds great. In execution, this has nothing to do with it. These guys being your agents, and you're trying to convert them, but you're not really converting them. The references to stuff like this obviously is viviculture from what I can tell. But the references to book burning, balloons for freedom, innocence lost with a dead teddy bear. Knowledge with the nerds with glasses. I wear glasses, by the way. This all fits, but it doesn't work if you're trying to build a better dystopia. It feels like you're trying to create and replace the dystopia. But again, that scoring doesn't even make sense because building facilities like, the Apothecary of Dreams, the Fountain of Wishful Thinking, the Theater of Propaganda, the Cafeteria of Nameless Meat. None of that sounds like a better dystopia. That all is control. And this game makes you feel like you're a dictator, not a liberator, not a rebel. You're not trying to make things better. And this is where it really irks me because I don't believe in the dystopian future. Anyone with a brain knows it's a trap. But there are people that fantasize about that power of being that leader. And that's the problem. As Leia told Grand Moff Tarkin,
the more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
The truth is that people rebel against bad states and then other governments will eventually come and help. But they need to establish a foothold, and that requires that people rebel, protest, and fight for what they believe is equality and freedom. The idea of you want to keep your fellows stupid, because stupid people are easier to manipulate, because they let their feelings get in the way and they don't really think about long-term investments. And I'm kind of guilty of this because this was a compulsive buy. I knew better. I thought better. I don't believe reviews on Board Game Geek 90% of the time because it just feels like they're trying to make money and it's crap. But also, I've brought this up. Board Game Geek needs to stop letting people just put 10-star ratings and be like, oh yeah, you owned it, but you never played it. And I'm not saying, write an essay, but describe what's actually good about it in a non-vague online college class way. I agree with you totally, but, that's why, people are dumb. You want to play a game, you want to think, you want to be challenged. You want to be able to do things and express and see the puzzle as it is. But in a system of rolling dice and hoping that you get multiple sets so you can be like, oh look, I can do 2 actions, I can outwin you in that speed, isn't really a skill thing. The artifact deck, drawing the right artifacts is not a skill, this is luck. And like I said, these agents, they range from good to bad. Some are game-breaking and some don't do anything. Majority of my games, I got agents that I couldn't use. And it wasn't because I couldn't use them, it's because I didn't want to. Their abilities suck. Having this fun dark humor or dystopian stuff to think, like read a book or burn a book, the part of me that actually likes knowledge says read the book. But the player of I want to win says burn the book. And this is about sacrificing principle. I tried doing it the way I believe, and it doesn't work in this game because this game doesn't want you to do that. Theoretically, that extra recruit could give you another star if this is all going to plan. But in a race to 10 stars on the board, that's not going to help you. That doesn't make sense. And again, a lot of their abilities are kind of useless. So, Euphoria. It's a game. That's the best I can describe it. It's a functional board game. It's not fun. I am not challenged. I am not stimulated. But the truth is, every group I played with, except for that one guy that said he really loved this game, and I was like, alright, well, maybe I'm missing something. Show me what I'm missing. And no, he pretty much showed me that. Everyone else at the table was like, no, we don't want to play this. I was just like, okay, but I bought it, so I'm going to make you guys play it. And we got a person that knows how to play this and says it's great, because after our first impressions, I was like, no. And I asked him, what was fun about the game? And he's like, oh, you get to place workers and kick other workers off and roll dice. And I was just like, that's fun to you. I don't see what the thrill of Euphoria is. And I'm probably going to get raked over the coals because Stone Meyer is a sacred cow. But yeah, Euphoria sucks. I know there's an expansion that supposedly fixes a lot of these problems. Like I said, the Ignorance and Bliss expansion. It's going to have an auction market or something, so you don't have to rely on luck anymore. It adds AI players, so you have at least a minimum of 4 players if you're doing a 2-player game. Which I was like, okay, this game doesn't really care. This game is just slow. The fact that you only move tracks one at a time and your actions are just pick up and roll dice in place and just collect resources until you have enough to do something. The game feels very slow. It doesn't respect your time. And I think more people are just talking about like theme. As far as the art, I actually like this art. It reminds me of the old, 1940s high art deco style. Plus it also gives me Megatropolis vibes. If you haven't seen that movie, check it out. It's actually really good for being an old silent film. I don't like this game, and I'm getting rid of it as soon as I can. This is not good. It's not fun, but I know people see Stonemaier and they worship him, and just stop. I see board game designers put their names on a lot of board games, and majority of the time, that's just a red flag to me to say, get the hell away from that game. A lot of board game designers should probably just not try to pretend that they're like rock stars and build a cult of personality. It's not good, and it's not healthy for the board game industry or the board game state. I hate doing reviews on games because it just sounds like bitching and nagging. But I have to point out, I paid money for this. I was really excited for this, and I gave this a very good chance. And it just seems to be the same crap produced, all style, but no substance. That's been my review of Euphoria. I'm still doing the 2025 giveaway. Check out that video if you want to win some free stuff. Other than that, take care of yourselves, and GG's.